I'm back. About to finish up Mark 14. This is just getting into once he was captured. Immediately, even as Jesus said, Judas and one of the 12 disciples arrived with the crowd of men armed with swords and clubs. They had been sent by the leading priestess and the teachers, the religious laws, and the elders. And I talked about this before, but I'm just tying everything in back together. The traitors of Judas have been gained, had be the traitors Judah had given a prearranged signal, and you'll know which one to arrest when I greet him with a kiss. Then you can take him away under guard. As soon as they arrived, Judas walked up to Jesus, Rabbi, and he exclaimed and gave him the kiss. And this makes sense to when you look at the movie called Immortals. It was four girls, and they were one of them was she was prophetic and she could like see into the future, but the other three was decoys. So if you look at the 12 disciples, they was all decoys for Jesus, and once one of them gave them away, they knew who Jesus finally was in a sense. But that's just a part of the story, because I mean you should have technically already knew who he was, but that's if you're looking at the story as straight physical. They grabbed Jesus and arrested him, but one of the men with Jesus pulled out his sword and struck the high priest's slave, slashing off his ear. Jesus asked him, let me see, what did I miss? Okay. Jesus asked him, Am I some dangerous revolutionary that come with swords and clubs to arrest me? Why didn't you arrest me at the temple? I was there among you teaching every day. But these things happened to fulfill what scripture say about me. And this was just saying, I mean, he pretty much wasn't going into details in the sense of how we talk, but pretty much he was saying, like, why are y'all coming at me with swords when you never seen me carry a gun or a sword? And he was like, I've never been aggressive towards nobody, so why are y'all coming at me with aggression? And then he goes on to say, I've been around y'all teaching every day. Y'all didn't have this energy before, so why y'all coming with this energy now? And pretty much the same shit that we say today when, people start, when you might say something to them and offend them, now they want to try to kill you on some shit like, nigga, what the fuck? Did I really offend you that bad? Or your morals that weak? The shit you stand on that soft? But these things are happening to fulfill what the scriptures say about me. But he already knew this time was to come. Then all the disciples deserted him and ran away, like he said, because the thing is, like, the masses, like, they ain't want to lose their humanity over the masses. They wanted to stay human. They weren't gonna fight for what they believed in, even though the one dude did try to slice the preacher up. But other than that, like, they ran away, and they say one young man followed behind, was clothed only in a long linen shirt, and the mob tried to grab him and he slipped out of his shirt and ran away naked. But he pretty much was the last one to try to stay and follow behind Jesus. But the mob was pretty much looking for anybody that was around Jesus, like any disciples that they had, they was gonna kill them too in the same sense. So that's why another reason they was running, because they felt like that they was teaching the devil's work or some shit, like with what's that movie, Bobby Boucher? It's the devil, Bobby. Like, that's what they started thinking in that same idea. And so they like, well, now we gotta crucify the devil, because I mean, he really was bringing the devil out in them in the sense of telling them, hey, that's what's wrong. You're Satan in the sense of how you live in your human ways. And they was like, well, shit, you know how you judge somebody through your own reflection in your eyes. That's what they did. That's the best way to explain it. They took Jesus to the high priest's home, and where they was leading the priests and the elders, the teachers and religious law had gathered. So you see who are already there. The high priest, the leading priestess, the elders, teachers, religious law had gathered. Teachers of the religious law had gathered. So these are pretty much the same people that's doing the things today. You'll be some politicians, some people from some churches, maybe some more elite people from some corporations. Meanwhile, Peter had followed him at a distance and went right into the high priest's courtyard, there where he sat with guard, warming himself by the fire. And then this goes back into the leading priestess and to the high council, and was trying to find evidence against Jesus so they could put him to death. So they pretty much was coming up with false execution, I can't even say the word no more. But they couldn't find any. Many false witnesses spoke against him, but they contradicted each other. Finally, some men stood up and gave a false testimony. we hear him say, I will destroy the temples and made with human hands, and in 3 days I will build another made without human hands. But even with those stories, they didn't get them straight. And that's because they were scared. Like, they believed their temples was everything. They just go to show you how human they was. They believed the shit they built and was everything. It's so sad, because it's the same shit today. The high priest stood up before the others. Let me see if I read it. Okay, the high priest stood before the others and asked Jesus, well, aren't you going to answer these changes? Or, let me see. Aren't you going to answer these charges? What do you have to say for yourself? Jesus was just silent and made no reply. The high priestess asked him, are you the Messiah, the Son of the Blessed One? And pretty much they just go into that, just, keep calling him guilty. They all cry he should deserve to die. They begin to spit on him, blindfold him, and beat him with their fists. Prophecy to us, they jeered. And the guards slapped him and took him away. So they think what they was doing was, the gods was on their side in a sense. And then this is where it goes to it gets realer, where the disciples start to realize their flaws and how Jesus was right about the things about how they were going to portray him. And here it goes. Meanwhile, Peter, this is Mark 14:66. Meanwhile, Peter was in the courtyard. One of the servants' girl who worked in the high priestess came by. A high priestess, like, this shit is all up in here. That's why I was talking about labels and all these things, but we'll get into that later. Came by and noticed Peter warming himself at the fire. She looked at him closely and said, You're one of those with Jesus of Nazareth. But Peter denied it. I don't know what you're talking about, he said. And he went out the entryway, and just then a rooster, he said, and what the fuck, he said, and he went out into the entryway. Just then a rooster crowd, I guess. But they're just going into, that's them saying that you'll be questioned by a bunch of people. That's what Jesus was saying. He was like, the roosters will crow twice, and at the third time you'll deny me. But we're getting into it. When the servant girl saw him standing there, she began telling the others, this man is definitely one of them. But Peter denied it again. That's the second time he denied Jesus and the Lord and just his mission and purpose. A little later, some of them other bystanders confronted Peter and said, you must be one of them, because you are Galilean. Peter swore a curse on me if I'm lying. I don't know this man you're talking about. Immediately the rooster crowed the second time. Suddenly Jesus' word flashed through Peter's mind, and then it goes back to what Jesus said, before the roosters crow twice, you will deny me 3 times, and that you'll even know. He said, you'll deny me 3 times that you'll even know me. And then as he realized, he broke down and wept. And it just goes to show, like, you might say you stand behind shit, but are you willing to die for what you believe in? In that same sense, like, that's the gateway to wherever you have to go. Like, if something comes to a point where you have to protect your family and your brothers, like, I mean, it is what it is. Like, that's just by nature. Like, if somebody attack my people, I'm not going to sit up here and morally think about it. Like, I remember from one of the things I said, like, not getting emotional, but I kind of left out, like, even Brother Panic talk about it. It's like a part of you, like, even when Jesus said, you're not going to ever be perfect. And I ain't mean to kind of label it that way, but I ended up doing it. But we'll never be perfect. It's going to always be a part of humanity that's going to make us react and be emotional, just like Jesus did. But in that same aspect, Jesus would have fought back if, the same circumstances, just like how the dude cut off the ear. Like, he said that, like, he even said with you're supposed to fight back from your brother and defend your father and mother. Like, there's many examples from this shit. Like, if he was like Martin Luther King, nobody should strike. Like, the people that was with him wouldn't have struck the priest and cut off his ear. That's what I'm trying to say. And it just go to show you what type of person he was. Jesus might not have carried a sword, but he knew him. He wasn't, he knew about humanity. He wasn't oblivious to this shit, to be honest. Then they go into how he had to be tried by Pilate. And Pilate was supposedly knew that he was righteous and all these things, but the fact that she questioned him, that disappointed Jesus even more. Like, and it really just get into him about to being crucified. I'm trying to see where I want to start though. I guess I'm just gonna have to read, because I didn't write notes down for 15. Let me see. Probably end the mark off over here, because I mean, this just go to show how people are turn on you. Very early in the morning, the leading priests and the elders and the teachers of religious law and the entire human council met to discuss the next step. And when I say people turn on you, I meant to say humanity. Humanity will turn on you. Even the humanity in yourself will stop you. Will try to stop you from trying to be a god. Like I talk about the ego trying to make you stay human in the sense of either being always down on yourself or too full of ego and having too much possessions and thinking, you know, you can't let that shit go. And that's just all a part of staying human. But let's see, met to discuss the next step. They bonded Jesus, led him away, and took him to Pilate, the Roman governor. Pilate asked Jesus, are you the king of the Jews? Jesus replied, you have said it. And him just saying that is like, you already know it. You've claimed it before, in a sense of we already know what's going on. The leading priest kept accusing him of many crimes, and Pilate asked, aren't you going to answer them? What about all these charges they're bringing against you? But Jesus said nothing, much to surprise to Pilate. And the reason he's saying nothing, because you already know what's going on, but you playing games, so clearly you're going to stay stuck in this humanity. And the reason you know this because when the crowd comes and says who they want to free, Pilate goes with the crowd instead of going with Jesus. And let me just keep reading. Now with the governing custom each year during Passover celebration to release one prisoner, anyone the people requested. One of the prisoners at the time was Barabbas, a revolutionary who had committed murder in the uprising. The crowd went to Pilate and asked them to release the prisoner as usual. And then he was just asking, would you like to release the king of the Jews? Pilate asked, for he realized by now the leading priest had arrested Jesus out of envy. So like I said, he knew what was going on. But at this point, the leading priest stirred up the crowd to demand the release of Barabbas instead of Jesus. Pilate asked him, then what should I do with this man you call the king of Jews? And the reason why Jesus stopped answering, because he knew that he was only going to lead to his people, because like the crowd was too hectic. And I don't remember if I read this before, like when they was planning to attack Jesus, they had planned on it being not during like this festival, because they was scared people was going to riot in the wrong way. And that just go to show going how they set up like things today. Like they'll set up some type of distraction so you won't like react a certain type of way in a sense. But they've been doing that for a while. But it's in Mark 14, right before there was a part of was it Judas? Yeah, Judas setting them up. And it said, okay, Pilate asked them, what should I do with this man, the king of Jews? They shouted back, crucify him. Why? Pilate demanded, what crime has he committed? And he was really trying to figure it out, but he know that since the crowd is too rowdy, they've already been stirred, that pretty much he got to go with it, or they're going to be trying to be off with his head next, because at the end of the day, they only got leadership due to the weakness of these people. So when the people do start showing power, they do got to listen to them, so the people will feel like it's some type of democracy, or, you know, like they got just do or some shit. And then they had already been persuaded to even get rid of the one dude, so they already being misled in the sense of the people, their sense of freedom. Like that wasn't even their idea of the freedom. The priest had told them that, or led them to think that. But the mob roared even louder to crucify him. So to pacify the crowd, the Pilate released Barabbas to them, and he ordered Jesus flogged with a lead tip whip and chained him to the Roman soldiers to be crucified. And then it just go on to the soldiers pretty much mocking him, they taunting him, and they was just saying like, let me see. They was like, how you gonna destroy the temple now, and all these different shits like that, and you know, just saying dumb shit, thinking they right because they got him tied up, and you know, they're physically winning, but spiritually they still so fucking lost. But I'm at 14, and I said I want to finish the crucifixion, so I'm gonna have to make another video. I'm out.